Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome to Espresso with Sky, giving you a fresh perspective on faith, life, God, and the Bible. I am Pastor Sky. I am not in my studio. It's been my second week here recording here in my parents' house. I'm visiting here. The studio you saw before was in Malaysia, and I possibly might be going back there pretty soon. I'm not sure yet, but let's see what happens. Now, those of you who are wondering, is this a virtual background? And I'm gonna tell you right now, it is not virtual. These are real pillows. It's a real couch. It's like, I got this real plant and stuff, and it's real. It is not a virtual background, even though it kind of looks like it, right? And of course, here's a kind of funny story. My mom saw last week's episode, and she's like, hey, the plant doesn't show up enough, so you know what? I'm going to move it around so it's more showing, right? I'm like, all right, thanks, Mom. But then when I look at it, it actually looks really nice. And this is not a fake plant. How do I know? Because some of the plant is dying and fake plants don't die. And also, this is a reminder to my mom, please water the plants. All right, guys, hope you guys had an amazing week. Today, we're going to get into a really interesting subject of how to get demon possessed. Yes, it sounds scary, and you're like, what? Demon possession? When's the last time you saw something like this? And the answer is probably in a movie theater, right? Haven't you seen it where like the head spins in circles, like, right? It's like a horror movie that they make these shows out of. Is it real? And the answer is most people will not really understand it until they've actually experienced it or seen someone who is demon possessed. As a pastor and a missionary, I've seen multiple people that have been demon possessed, and when you hear the stories, you will freak out, all right? But I'm just telling you, I've seen it, I've experienced it. Well, I haven't been demon possessed, but I've seen people I've worked with and helped to get out of demon possession. And it is a very, very interesting experience, and it could be scary at times. But let's get into this question of how to get demon possessed. So there are many different ways that people can get demon possessed, but I'm going to talk about the most common way that it actually happens, and it happens in 3 stages. So let's start with stage number 1. What is the first stage of demon possession? It's called self-induced control, which means it happens from you first, right? So Satan is not this being that has this almighty control that can just jump into anyone anytime they want. Or else we'd be seeing so many people in the world all of a sudden just get possessed for a second, kill someone, maim or lie, cheat or steal. But when we look at most of the situations that we go through, it's not really something enters us and we're controlled by it. It's more of us being tempted or something that we strongly desire that leads us to the point where Satan is able to influence us. Let me give you the first verse today, which is Ephesians chapter 4, verse 26 and 27. And it talks about, in your anger, do not sin. And what's the reason? Verse 27 says, do not give the devil a foothold. And this is one thing that we all understand, especially as people of faith. We know that we don't want to give Satan a foothold. Don't let him in the door. As long as the door is shut, he can never come in. But if you get too curious and you slowly open it and then he sticks his foot in, then no matter what you do, you cannot close that door. Which means, what are we saying? Don't let Satan even in. Which has to do with what? Which has to do with us. It is self-induced. Now, the most classic example of someone going through the 3 stages of demon possession is this one character that everyone knows, and it is Judas Iscariot, the one that betrayed Jesus. And what happened to him was he gave the devil a foothold, right? Something he strongly desired, some worldly or physical desire he wanted more than anything else, even more than God himself. How do we know? Take a look at John chapter 12, verse 5 and 6. Right? And what happens is there's this woman who takes this expensive perfume, pours it on Jesus' feet, wipes it with her hair. And the first thing Judas Iscariot says in verse 5 is, why wasn't this perfume sold and the money given to the poor? It was worth a year's wages. But then verse 6 says what? He didn't say this because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief. As keeper of the money bag, he used to help himself to what was put in. So he's the one taking care of the money for Jesus and the disciples, and he was stealing from it. He loved money more than anything else. And what happened was, this becomes the foothold. And what I want to bring up to you right now is this is one of the most important things you have to think about is Satan can't come in unless you give him permission. How do you give him permission? Is when your desires become so strong that your actions turn towards doing these things that are not right? Or in other words, they become sinful. We bring sin into our life, and the more and more we do this, the more and more we're inviting Satan in to make us go to the next stage. So what is stage 2? Stage 2 is indirect control. Now, what is indirect control? What does that mean? Indirect means that there's not like controlling my body and making me do things, but indirect means there's an influence, something in your heart that's telling you like, oh yeah, I think I think it's okay. Oh, I think it's okay to punch them in the face. Oh, I think it's okay to steal this. Oh yeah, and we kind of convince ourselves, and we have this influence inside of our hearts. How did this happen to Judas Iscariot? Everyone, take a look at John chapter 13, verse 2. Okay? Now, when you look at this, like it's going to show up on the screen. It says what? It says, the evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. So what happened? It wasn't Satan entered him. It was Satan prompted, influenced, gave him inspiration, more motivation. You know, the thoughts that we have in our head, like, yeah, it's not bad. Come on, it's okay. It's only once. And you begin to convince yourself that it's okay to do this. And what happened? What was the thought that was being given? The thought was, betray Jesus. Betray Jesus. And we all know, what did he betray Jesus for? Money. It was all about money. And what happens is, stage 1 is self-induced. And if you stay in that mode, and if you stay in that mindset, oh my gosh, I really desire, what happens? When you reach that level of, oh, I want this so badly, you open the door to stage 2, which is indirect control, where Satan begins to prompt, influence, give you the thoughts that you never had before. And we sit there like, oh my goodness, how many times does that happen in our life? Now, what I'm telling you now is, those 2 stages are very, very common in people. It's happened a lot. And we're able to stop ourselves kind of reaching the next level. You know, like I'm going to tell you this one interesting story is, even at one time, I've never thought of committing suicide except one time. And it wasn't because I was depressed. It wasn't anything else. It was one time at school, there was someone who came to give some education on suicide for some reason. And it was so weird because they were telling us how to properly commit suicide. Like, you know what? Most people who commit suicide, cut their wrist like this, but that's the wrong way to do it. You have to do it like this. And it was so strange because you're like, are you teaching us how to kill ourselves like properly? But the weird part was, when I went home, my brother wasn't home yet from school. I was by myself and I was thinking about this. And as I was thinking about it, thoughts and more of these thoughts kept coming into my head, until the point I actually had a knife to my wrist. And when I was like sitting, like, when I realized, like, what are you doing? Are you crazy? And I'm like, whoa, that was scary. Why? Sometimes our minds go into that deep hole, and what happens? It's self-induced. You keep thinking and thinking, oh, but who would miss me? Would anyone come to my funeral? What would they say about me? Oh, did I live a good life? And you bring yourself into a point where you can be influenced by Satan, right? And when that happens, more deeper thoughts come in. And think about this. I was like 12 at that time, and I had a knife to my wrist. Not because I wanted to. It was scary. I was like, how did I get to this point? Many people have gone to that point, and many people have not reached the 3rd stage, which we all know is direct control. That is demon possession. And when you look at the story of Judas Iscariot going through all 3 stages, it's John chapter 13, verse 27, the evening meal prepared with Jesus and his disciples. And what happened was, Jesus says, whoever dips this bread into the same bowl as me is the one who will betray me. And verse 27, what happened? As soon as Judas took the bread, Satan entered him. So we see 3 stages here, right? What are the 3 stages? The first one, which is the most important one that we have to think about, is self-induced. Is there anything that you desire so strongly, more than God, even more than your family, even more than yourself, that you're even risking to do something that is dangerous, right? Or illegal? That is a strong desire, right? And a lot of us have these things, and if we have these desires that are strong and unchecked, what happened is we reach the next stage where you've opened the door, Satan's foot has stuck in, and what's left? It's all this influence. Yeah, it's not bad. Come on, do it like this. And if you keep getting your mind and keep allowing these thoughts to get stronger and bigger, eventually what happens? It is direct control. Now, I would say most people normally will not reach stage 3, and that's why you don't see like millions of demon-possessed people in the world. Most people can stop themselves. However, in a time like now, when there's so much stress, there's a Ukraine war, there's shootings, a pandemic, we got monkeypox coming, like what is going on? In this time of stress, it becomes a lot easier for us to reach these higher and higher stages. So, if anything, I really, really hope that everyone, when we go through these difficult times, for those of you who are really strong in faith, you gotta pray, you gotta listen to the word, you gotta read the Bible, you gotta get yourselves in the right mindset. And another thing that's very, very healthy is find someone you can talk to, someone you can trust that kind of snaps you into the right mindset again. And this is one thing, this last thing I want to tell you guys is demon possession isn't always the movie style demon possession. Yeah, I've seen those things happen before, but not everyone is like that. There are a lot of people who are very, very normal, but then they just do this weird thing at the end. You're like, what just happened? Right? It's just like Judas Iscariot. He reached stage 3, he betrayed the Lord, and then what happened after? He realized what he had done, and then he committed suicide. Right? He was demon-possessed, Satan entered him, and once Satan had his way, he just left Judas Iscariot to whatever he wanted to do. And Judas Iscariot was left with the mess. And he thought to himself, oh my goodness, what did I do? And he threw the money away. He realized money wasn't it. And then he hung himself, or he committed suicide. And that's something that we have to understand too, is in the beginning of all things, where does the responsibility lie? It lies with us, and we have to be those that are in check, controlling ourselves more properly. Okay? I hope you guys really enjoyed today's 3 steps to being demon possessed. Not that I want you to try it and go do it. It's 3 steps to demon possession, meaning this is how it usually happens, and this is how we can stop ourselves from reaching that 3rd and terrible stage, okay? Everyone have an amazing and awesome week. Thank you so much for joining me here in my parents' home right now. Hopefully I won't be here too long, but we'll see you guys again next week. Everyone, take care. Bye-bye.